We're back. It's the Dedrique Taylor Coaches Show, hosted by me, Brandon Marcus, with the coach of Cal State Fullerton, the Titans, Dedrique Taylor. Dedrique, what's going on, my man?
Not much. Wishing everybody, hopefully everybody had a happy Thanksgiving and ate their face off and sitting back and relaxing and enjoying all this madness that we're under.
Before we get to actual basketball content, I got to ask you, what's your favorite part of Thanksgiving? What food is the best part of Thanksgiving for you? Is it the turkey? Is it one of the sides?
Nah, it's crazy. I'm gonna have a different answer. It's probably gonna be the dessert. Peach cobbler is
Peach
definitely,
cobbler,
yeah.
huh?
And my nephew made it this weekend or this past holiday, and it was really really good, really good. But my sister, his mom, she pitched in and did a lot of the cooking and made some dressing that was out of this world. So, needless to say, I carved it up.
Look at
On
you.
Thanksgiving.
Normally there's got your pumpkin pie, you got maybe sweet potatoes, but you're
Nah,
going after the peach cobbler. I
yeah,
love it.
that's my friend, Peach Cobbler. That's the reason why I got all this back fat.
Hey, you know what? You earned it, all right? You earned it.
No doubt, no doubt.
So you are still you guys are still under quarantine because of
Yeah.
the positive test. So since we last talked, no positive tests except for that one player.
Yeah, no positive tests. We've been tested. I think our staff has been tested probably 3 or 4 times, just because of the protocol we were under. The team has only been tested once. Obviously, they'll be tested starting next week, though 3 times a week. But no new tests have showed themselves up as of the quarantine.
And obviously no players are exhibiting symptoms, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So
No, even the player that tested positive, he still doesn't have. He's asymptomatic. He doesn't have any loss of taste, smell, none of the above. And in fact, his quarantine is over tomorrow, or his isolation is over tomorrow. So he'll get back to lifting and running and doing some stuff with our strength and conditioning coach.
there you go. And then you're hoping to have the team back on the floor, I'm assuming by the end of the week.
Yeah, we'll get back in the gym. I think we can be back this Friday. So we'll start practice Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And our hope is that we'll play December 9th against Division II school, and then go down to San Diego, or not UC, University of San Diego on December 11th. And we'll play them there, and then kind of makeshift schedule at that point.
What's the December 9th game? Is that Bethesda?
I think it'll be Bethesda. Yeah, I think it is Bethesda. And so we'll prepare to play them on the 9th, and then, like I said, on December 11th, we'll go down to San Diego and do what we can down there.
I mentioned Bethesda because obviously UC Irvine took care of Bethesda. I think they won by 80 or something
Oh my gosh!
a couple of days ago. I think they scored 135 points. I think the final score was 135-55. So
Oh,
that leads me to one of the topics I wanted to discuss. We might as well start with it. Is the conference and the players and the teams that have already started. And because I'm sure what you're doing now, because let's be honest, non-conference doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't. It's conference that matters. It
yeah,
always is really what matters with the Big West. You can look at non-conference, and we've talked about this before in terms of seeding, whether you want to be a 14 seed, a 15 seed. But this year, it really is all about conference.
yeah.
And you're watching these teams. Any teams that have stood out early on, anything that is unexpected from what you may have had going into, or your expectations going into the year?
Not really. Just seeing a couple of the teams, and really more so seeing the scores.
Mhm.
They are what I thought they would be. Obviously, Bethesda's playing quite a few of us in the Big West and up and down the West Coast. I think Santa Barbara played somebody yesterday or day before yesterday, and it was a Division II school, so they were supposed to win. And probably more than anything, just kind of getting used to seeing all of the teams in our conference play. And again, not seeing them play, but seeing their scores. And so that's a good sign for us moving forward. I know Davis played Idaho State and beat up on them. They played somebody else and lost a close game. So it's really good to be able to see our conference kind of getting their feet under them and playing some other schools and posting some other scores. Because at this point, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it's all about tipping the ball up. Most people say get to the game. I've seen instances, our women, for instance, they went to UCLA and tested at UCLA and was waiting for their test results, got their test results, but they still weren't allowed to play the game because they were waiting for Fullerton test results. And so, it's one thing to say get to the game, but I think it's something totally different to tip the game off and actually play, which we're seeing for our conference, and that's definitely a good sign.
Yeah, and listen, we're 1 month away basically from conference play starting. So you just need to get these teams through it. I mean, I broadcast over at UC Irvine with the women's side, and it really is just getting through
Sure.
each game. It's day by day. It's how you're going to take this, and it's weird. I mean, you go to the arenas and the chairs are spaced out, and everyone is spaced out on media row. You've
Yeah.
got the referees that have the masks on. It's a weird dynamic. There are no fans. It's just strange all around,
Yeah.
and it's now just about getting through it because it's going to be a weird season, no doubt about that. And so it's just it's a weird year, and it's a tough year to coach, and you're now having to do these Zoom meetings obviously with your team. How's that been the last week? Because last time we spoke, you said you were going to do some individual ones, you're going to do some group ones, some film sessions. How's that been?
I think it's been really good. The individual ones were I think much more productive than probably the group setting in terms of engagement. In the group setting, these guys, it's weird, man. They last maybe the whole team might last 10 minutes and we're off. You know, where the individual meetings they last 15, 20 minutes, and it's kind of an engaging thing, and we get a chance to talk. And I think what it has allowed us to do as a staff is kind of renegotiate, re-engage with those particular players, but also take the information that we've learned about them, present it to them, and have some conversation with them, and then adjust how we're going to move forward with the schedule in terms of working on their individual game and bringing that out in practice, and allowing it to be shown in the games as well. So we're going to try to um, mimic those things. And it's good for us to talk about those things and kind of be on the same page with those things. And so the individual meetings have been really, really productive. I think this week we'll start watching film and doing some things. And we only got 4 days, but we're going to spend some time on the film, and not a whole bunch of time, but we're going to break it down in two groups instead of doing the whole group at one time. I think two groups will be a little more engaging, and try to get our points across. And those points will probably more than likely come from games that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 days as to why teams win, why teams are losing, different things that we've seen that we can pick up on and take advantage of, moving forward with us not playing games at this point.
What's been the biggest thing that stood out to you in terms of why teams are winning?
The biggest thing is shot selection. To me, the biggest thing has been shot selection. I can show you a super uber talented team that is not necessarily concerned about playing team basketball. They'd rather just jack up shots, and those shots, they don't understand those shots lead to transition points for the other team. And what I'm trying to do is trying to get our team to understand the significance of shot selection and how it controls a lot of what you do offensively, but it also dictates your energy. If you take a good shot and you work for a good shot, you're probably going to make it, which in turn turns your defense up a notch or two. But if you take a shot off of one or two passes or one or two dribbles and you miss it, automatically people's heads go down, and then the other team is scoring, and now all of a sudden you got to dig out of that hole. And so we're just trying to show our guys, what that leads to, what good shots lead to, what bad shots leads to. But that's probably the biggest thing is shot selection. And I think buy-in to team ball, team chemistry, whether it's on offense or defense, the chemistry component is very, very obvious to me. Those teams that are playing for each other, and then those teams that are playing for self. And I think you have an opportunity to fix it, because we're talking about 1 or 2 games, but like all of us, the coach will have his work cut out for him.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned shot selection, how important that is. Does that have anything to do with the tempo that you want to play? Do you because perhaps maybe you're slowing things down so that you're not forcing things if going up and down the floor? Of course, fitness is going to play a role as well.
Sure. No, we want to play as fast as we can, play well. But I think offensively, being under control, having some type of rhythm, and going from slow to fast is most important for us in our offensive flow in terms of our pace. Basically utilizing our athleticism, utilizing our quickness, but being under control. But I think what we're seeing is a lot of guys, a lot of new guys are a little bit out of control, which leads to turnovers, which leads to charges, your fair share of turnovers, however you define them. But, you know, hopefully we can take a lesson from watching the other teams and be a little bit under control, and maybe play even a little slower, like you said, to start, and then ramp things up as opposed to the other way around. So we'll see. But I think turnovers are a key part of any game at any point in the year, and this year is no different.
Yeah, for people that are wondering about the roster, we'll go deep into the roster in the next episode right before the first game. And coach will talk about the players that he sees in each role and who's going to be possibly starting, who's going to be crucial to success, because there are some important seniors, obviously, that are not on this team anymore. So we'll go deep into that roster on the next episode. One thing that I'm curious about, coach, is what's Friday going to look like? And then Saturday and Sunday, because I'm sure you're already starting to think about it. When you get these guys on the floor for the first time in 2 weeks, is it going to be a normal practice? Is it going to be an hour long? Is it be 30 minutes? What are you thinking in terms of what the first couple practices are going to be like?
First couple practice will be maybe a little bit different in terms of we will go non-contact. We won't do any 5-on-5, or we don't won't do anything crash up, bang 'em up derbies, which is what I like. And I think the drawback to doing that is you're not used to that style of play. You're not used to the physicality of the game, and that's, unfortunately or fortunately, it's a drawback that you have to deal with and you have to work around. But more so than anything, we're going to try to attack their conditioning, but we're going to also try to attack the fundamentals of the game. Doing a lot of stuff defensively, 2-on-0, 3-on-0, 4-on-0, 5-on-0, a lot of stuff defensively that we normally would do that is contact. We're going to create the scenario where it's non-contact, but really still try to emphasize the work that needs to be done, and that's offensively and defensively. And then I think something different. We're going to spend a lot of time during practice developing skill set. We talk about it, and I think it's something that we do in the latter part of the year, because we can, throw all of our concepts in and we show everybody what everybody else wants to do, and we work towards that. But then also it gives us an opportunity to work on their individual game. Well, we'll probably start that process a little bit earlier, because like everybody knows, we didn't do it in June and July, and we didn't really have a fall. So, we're going to try to do two things at one time. But I think the long run, it'll pay off for us. But I think the first couple, three practices, the most important thing is just to not get anybody hurt, but still try to get some level of condition and some level of work within the confines of those practices. I don't think, obviously we won't go 2.5 hours. It'll probably be an hour 30, maybe an hour 40. A lot of it depends on how bad of shape they're in, and what they can do. Because as you know, when you get fatigued, the first thing that starts to go is your mind. And so now all of a sudden your mind goes, and who knows where the ball ends up, or guys will start to get hurt, and coach will get mad. So we don't want to do that.
Coach will get mad. I like how you ended that there. Coach will get mad. It's like, you know what? This is not about, listen, they're going to get that. If they get hurt, what that, we don't want to avoid that. But
Yeah,
honestly, I just don't want to get pissed off,
yeah,
man.
no
I
doubt,
just want
no
to be in
doubt.
a good headspace. So,
Yeah,
you
there's
know
no
what?
reason for that. No reason for that.
No, no. Let's get to a point where we can be okay with each other and
No
not be
doubt.
mean for each other quite yet. I mean,
Yeah,
let,
no
let's
doubt.
let's try and be in a good spot mentally, at least for now, before we go
No
into
doubt, no doubt.
figure out
What's funny is watching these games, and again, I'm on the outside, the very outside, looking in on these games. But a lot of these games are the team chemistry is really really important. How everybody's getting along and being in the proper right, or the proper mind space, and kind of having the end goal be your goal. And the end goal very rarely has to do with self. It has to do with team more than anything. And so I think trying to establish that, or reestablish that again, starting Friday and Saturday, we won't wait till then. We've already started to attack it. But I think now what we're seeing is we have evidence of proof for our team to say, this is why we are preaching team. This is the significance of team. It's never ever about you. It's about us and what we can do together. And I was watching, or a friend of mine that is a coach, his name is Serge. He sent me a clip, and I think the clip is called Everglow, and it deals with the young lady that's phenomenally talented at Oregon, and her epiphany for Kobe Bryant, and her relationship with Kobe, and how that kind of bled over into their season. And it's an unbelievable clip, but the essence is it's team. It's all team, and I would encourage any and everybody to go and watch that episode. I think it's like 15, 16 minutes long. And Serge sent it to me, but it's super fundamental. You know, we forget those things, how important it is to utilize your talent to inspire those around you, to help other people around you. And that's one of the things that I want to try to emulate and try to move forward with our team and with our program is that our talent is not for us to consume. It's for the use of everybody else to be inspired by that talent, to be motivated by that talent and what it is that we do with that talent, which is hopefully utilize it to help everybody and help, you know, obviously most importantly, help our team, but help everybody dealing with whatever it is they're dealing with. And so we want to put a special emphasis on that moving forward for our program.
You got some Zen going on, man. You got some Phil Jackson that all of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah,
is coming back on.
we're gonna try to steal all of that. We're gonna try to steal all of that. My dad just showed me this book that someone gave him, and it was I think it's called The Mindful Athlete or something like that. And George Mumford and Phil Jackson and all of those guys. And, you know, you talk a lot about the Zen master, so to speak. But there's a lot of truth to that in terms of being mindful and being aware. You know, I've heard it a lot of times that the number one predictor for success is being self-aware.
Hmm.
Being self-aware. Are you aware of yourself and how that plays on to other people and what it is that you do and how it impacts or affects other people? And so learning about yourself is super important, but then also taking that information that you've learned about yourself and using it for good is even more important in my book.
Yeah, and you mentioned team chemistry. I mean, that's going to be so important. It really does seem like it's not about the most talented team at this point.
Yeah.
It is going to be about not only team chemistry but also communication. I mean, if you're communicating well, not only on the offensive end, but more importantly on the defensive end, everyone knows where they're supposed to be, and you're able to get the stops that you can really that you should be getting.
Sure.
It's gonna be pivotal. I mean, it really does seem like it may start on the defensive end and the communication there.
Yeah, no doubt. It will start on the defensive end. It will definitely start because defense travels.
Hmm.
Defense is a thing that you can take anywhere. And if you're playing it, it doesn't matter where you play it, it travels with you. You know, offensively, some of your long range shots, they may not be going that night. And so, how are you going to win the game? In my opinion, if you hang your hat on defense, you're going to always give yourself an opportunity to win those games, you know, where your offense may be struggling or you're not making as many shots as you'd like to. You know, obviously, everybody wants to be perfect. Everybody wants to, you know, put their best foot forward. But the question becomes, what happens when that doesn't take place? What are you going to do? Are you going to sulk? Are you going to cry because this is not working out the way you thought it was going to be? Or are you going to say, okay, let's look at the situation for what it is, learn or figure out what's working, what's not working, and go towards what's working and utilize that to give yourself a chance to win.
Are you paying attention to how many minutes coaches are playing certain players to get an idea of what you think may make sense at all, or are you just watching as just a normal type of fan slash scouting the opponent?
Uh, I'm watching kind of more of a slash kind of an opponent
Mhm.
scout, kind of watching it, just not necessarily looking at minutes played.
Mhm.
I think because a lot of that has to do with conditioning. You know,
Yeah.
I can play a lot of minutes because he's in pretty good shape. Obviously, you're going to afford him those minutes. But I think another telltale sign is how deep you are. You know, if you have a team that you know there's not a big drop off between the first guy and the second guy, then you will see that. And I think that's one thing that will be um, identified really quickly how deep teams are and how good those teams are because of their depth. Can they use it? Can they use it consistently? And that's a question that I think for us that we have to answer because I do think we have some depth. There's no question on paper we have some depth,
Mhm.
but we still have to do the necessary work that will allow us to show and produce night in and night out.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is just because you're going to be one of the last teams to play. And so the one thing that you have to your advantage, because there's a lot of disadvantages, obviously, to starting this late, is you're able to see what every other team is doing. And in terms of the minutes played, you make a good point in terms of the depth, but the minutes played also you can say that, oh, okay, so you know what, this everybody probably has had about the same amount of time to kind of get going.
Yeah.
So how many minutes might be the sweet spot for what these coaches are finding out,
Yeah.
and trying to basically see what other teams are doing, not only for minutes played, but just in general, and just being able to take it. I don't know what can you take from being one of the last teams that plays and watching other teams and basically being the guinea pig of sorts.
Well, the first thing we can take is we can get healthy. You
Yeah,
know, there. If we would have went to Washington, we probably would have had 3 or 4 guys that probably would have not played, or if they would have played, they would have had no live time with refs, no live time with their teammates on the floor. And so, first and foremost, I think this is an opportunity for us to get healthy. Dealing with non-COVID related issues such as arms and knees and hamstrings and all those things. Hopefully, this 14 days will give us the time to be able to rest our body, so to speak, but also, get it healthy. And so that also presents, a good problem to have in terms of now you're healthy, you have 10 or 12 bodies that you can throw in the game, and now all of a sudden you can use that depth. And so, it's kind of, I think, if you asked every coach, how are they approaching it? How are they approaching the games? It's kind of, you're learning about your team, because I don't know what they're going to do. I have
yeah,
no idea. But I think what you're also seeing is great opportunity for teaching, great opportunity for lessons. I think no Villanova lost the other day to Virginia Tech. I guarantee you there's a lot of lessons being taught. Kentucky lost. There's a lot of lessons that those teams are super talented, but if you buy into the little things along with that talent, you got a chance to make a long run. But if you don't, you can stack up some L's just the same.
yeah. I'm not entirely sure the best team is going to end up winning this conference in the Big West. I don't think that's going to happen. It means it's possible that it does, but this is going to be the one year where it's going to be the team that stays the healthiest
Sure.
and the team that just focuses. I mean, there's going to be a lot of focus that's not going to be on basketball. It's going to be on what's going on around the world and with COVID, and also like we just said, injuries. And there's going to be injuries, and normally a typical injury at the start of the season sidelines somebody for a month or two. And you've had this plenty of times, and you
Yeah,
say, I hope to have this guy back by Big West play. That's
sure.
not the case anymore. I mean, you lose a guy, and he's most likely going to be done for all of conference with the way things are going.
Yeah, yeah, no question. I think also what this is teaching us is that to expect, 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 games to be canceled in conference play as well. Like somebody's, it's inevitable when you bring bodies together. That's how the virus is passed, and what we're seeing is an uptick in that. And I would imagine it'll have a large impact on our season moving forward, and us mentally embracing the fact that, yeah, there's games scheduled Fridays and Saturdays, but there's a good chance that we're probably not going to play 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of those games, and just basically just deal with it however it is. And I think it kind of goes back to my slogan: embrace the suck.
Yep.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. There's going to be a day where you think you're going to the gym to play a game and you're not going to. I mean, that would be unbelievable if you go through an entire Big West season and
No.
don't have any games that get banged. But I have a feeling that you're going to get at least one or two. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just
No.
seems inevitable.
And I think also too, what that does for your team and for your individuals mentally. I was on a call earlier, and I think the UCLA women, either today or yesterday, they were going up to Pepperdine, but an hour before they were scheduled to leave, somebody popped up with a positive test, and all of a sudden that game is canceled. So mentally, the coach was saying, what does that do for your team? What position does that put your program in, whether you're the team that tests positive, or if you're not the team that tests positive, you get right back on the court in practice. Are your players in that right frame of mind? I mean, it's there's more questions than there are answers.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Speaking of questions and answers, you can email us at dtaylorcoachesshow@gmail.com. That's dtaylorcoachesshow@gmail.com. As we open up the mailbag, we
Yes,
said we
sir.
would, and we got a couple questions here, Coach. We are going to close the episode with 2 questions from Tim Vincent, a season ticket holder. The first one, and we're going to talk about the roster next week, but we'll get a sneak peek here. Who will be the top scorers on this year's team, in your opinion? That's the number one question.
That's a great question. It depends on who's healthy. You know, I could see a handful of guys averaging a lot of points. I don't know that we will necessarily rely any longer on one or two guys getting 19, getting 20 points. I think if we have five or six or seven guys right around double digits, I think we'll be a really, really good ball club. And I think it'll make it hard for our opponents. So without playing a game and quite frankly, without seeing us practice with everybody practicing, it's hard to necessarily answer your question. But my hope is that we'll have five or seven guys, in double digits. And I think also you've seen the winner of our conference kind of uh, be in that make and mold, like UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara. They don't have guys that average 25 points a game. They have guys that average 12 points a game. They don't play any more than 24 minutes a game, and that's what it is. So they go out and they play hard and they're productive, and there's probably seven or eight guys that are like that. And so if we can mimic that, it's awesome. But I will say this, Tim, we have some guys that on any given night, I feel like they can go for 20, they can go for 30, night in and night out. So it's just a matter of how the defense is going to play us, and we're going to try to take advantage of that.
So gone are the days of Khalil and Kyle dominating a ball game and taking over. It's gonna be more so a group effort. Like this entire episode we talked about, it's gonna be team chemistry and group effort to get this done.
No question. That's my hope. That is my hope. And I do think there is a time and a place within the shot clock for individual play. But as long as that individual play is about the team, I think you'll see a difference in the way that we play moving forward.
And the second question is, do you think fans will be allowed in the gym at some point this season?
I don't. I don't see that happening because what I mentioned earlier, like if you watch the landscape of the virus, there's an uptick. It'd be different, I think, if there was a downtick, but there's an uptick. Like hospital beds are full. The medical services all of a sudden are being depleted. Depending on where you are. And so here in Southern California, which is probably a hotbed, you can turn on the news at any point given time and see Los Angeles County. They're trying to shut down or starting to shut down. I would assume the other counties will be right behind it. And so, no, unfortunately, I don't see fans attending games this season. My hope is that that'll change, but unfortunately, I don't see that.
Yeah, that would be very tough to do.
Yeah,
And I mean, there's some bigger places that could possibly make it work. I mean, you look, for example, a place like Duke at Cameron Indoor that maybe they can try and make it work with
yeah,
fans spread out, but it really is difficult. I mean, because Tim, the one thing is when I was at the arena at the Bren on Saturday, is you got everybody there wearing a mask inside. I mean, obviously everybody knows about the virus inside versus outside, and
sure.
the one thing is you got players that are huffing and puffing all over the place, so it's tough because even though you're 6 feet apart, you still have the virus possibly that's spreading indoors. So it really is difficult, and you have people that are off the court more so than usual. So it's difficult. It sucks. I mean, I know coach wishes that the fans could be there to root their team on. It sucks for the players because it's a weird atmosphere to play with nobody there. It's an empty gym and it's difficult. But I mean, you obviously want everybody to be there. It's just it seems like it's more of a next year type of thing.
Yeah, I think we'll hopefully see things resume back to some sense of normalcy next year. But again, like you mentioned, there's new protocol coming out that even says if you're in the gym on the sideline, our players, even if you come out of the game
Mhm.
and you sit on the sideline, you're going to have to wear a mask. Again, because of the lack of ventilation on the inside and because of the proximity in terms of being within 6 feet, there's all kind of medical protocols that we'll have to follow, and that too will make it different for our ball club moving forward. We're going to practice this weekend. We're going to practice timeouts. That's one thing that we've seen throughout the course of other watching the games is the efficiency in those timeouts. Are the seats preset? Do we set them every time out? That area has to be clean. Again, that's all crazy. And I was saying this to one of our parents earlier today in terms of, I'm thinking about all this information and we forgot what my title is. It says coach. I don't know nothing about medical stuff. I don't know anything about cleaning. I don't know anything about any of this medical interpretation in terms of the rules. I'm a coach. Like that's as my guy says, that is well above me.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny is I mentioned earlier, I asked you the question, what can you take from being able to watch everybody play? And it's funny because I wasn't expecting an answer to come later in the podcast slash video, whatever if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to us wherever you are,
Sure.
that timeouts is one thing that
Yeah.
you're learning and seeing how they're executed and
Yeah.
where the chairs are going. Because it's funny, you don't think about that. But I talked to Coach T, head coach over at UC Irvine, and she was like, there's 3 rows of chairs, and my players in the third row can't see what's going on the other side. So
Yeah.
you got to get used to where everybody's going to be.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's weird to even think about that,
Yeah.
but that's why you have an entire coaching staff.
Yeah. Thankfully, we do have a coaching staff, and it's a point that they brought up because if you leave it up to me, we'll never have a timeout. Who needs them? Just play.
No timeouts needed.
Yeah,
No
nah,
water's going to be
just play.
needed. You haven't played basketball for 2 weeks. I
No
feel
question.
bad for those guys because I know they're going to be running. They're going to be doing lines on Friday. It's not going to be fun doing those suicides.
Yeah.
It's not going to be enjoyable. But
Yeah.
hopefully, everybody is on the practice floor on Friday and we're able to catch up next weekend, talk about what the first couple of practices were like, and give a preview of what this season will look like as we break down the roster. So, Coach, you can always follow you on Twitter. It's at CSF Coach Taylor, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I am at BD Marcus on Twitter. Please subscribe and rate and review the podcast wherever you do listen. I know on the Apple Podcast, give a 5-star rating, review it as well. It does help us, and give us that thumbs up on the YouTube page as well. Dedrique Taylor, Brandon Marcus, Coach, talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks. Look forward to it.